Welcome to the deep dive, where we take a stack of sources, distill the knowledge, and give you the essential, most fascinating nuggets. Today, we are not just talking about empathy. We are taking it apart, really deconstructing it with the, let's say, surgical precision of 20th century phenomenology.
We are. We're diving into the work of Edith Stein and specifically her 1916 dissertation on the problem of empathy. And this is foundational philosophy. She's trying to clarify the very bedrock of how we know anything about another person's inner life.
Right, so like the ultimate basis of knowing what someone else is experiencing.
Exact.
And it's so important to get this straight from the top. She's not talking about empathy in the way we usually do, the sort of emotional, I feel your pain thing.
No, not at all. This is an intellectual mission for her. It's an act of consciousness, a form of perception that's kind of unique to human connection.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Our goal here is pretty high. We need to understand Stein's, her really rigorous definition of empathy, and also why she thinks it's necessary for understanding not just the other person, but our own individual self. And then this bright line she draws between the soul and the spirit.
It's a lot to cover. And to even begin, Stein had to use this pretty radical method from her teacher, Edmund Husserl. It's called the phenomenological reduction.
For bracketing, right.
That's bracketing.
She basically puts the entire world, the physical existence of tables, chairs, the stars, even the reality of our own body and mind. She puts it all into, like, philosophical parentheses.
She does.
Why? I mean, why is that suspension of belief even necessary?
Because if you want to understand the essence of the phenomena, what empathy is in its purest form, you have to strip away all the assumptions about where it comes from or how it shows up physically. She suspends the entire surrounding world to get at pure consciousness, to arrive at what is absolutely 100% indubitable.
So you're stripping away the noise to find the signal. And that's why, according to the sources, the old theories of empathy just didn't work.
Exactly. I mean, you have theories like inference by analogy or this idea of inner imitation. They all failed because they were mixing different things. They'd mix up, say, aesthetic concerns, like how you appreciate a painting, with cognitive ones, like how you know someone is sad. They never just asked the first question, what is this thing? Just as a structure in our consciousness.
So once everything is bracketed away, what is the pure essence she finds? What is empathy, philosophically speaking?
She defines it as the perceiving of foreign subjects and their experience. But here's the really technical core of it. Empathy is an act sui generis.
A unique kind of act.
A unique foundational type of perceiving. It's not just seeing and it's not just thinking. It's something else entirely.
And this is where it gets really interesting for me, because she immediately says what it isn't. It's not outer perception. Like, when I look at you and you wince, I'm perceiving a physical change, a spatiotemporal event. But the pain itself, I'm not perceiving that in space. Pain isn't a physical object you can point to.
Right. And that leads to this critical concept.
Yeah.
The foreign experience is given to me as non-primordial. This is the key insight.
Okay, that sounds like a paradox. How can you perceive something that isn't original to you?
Well, think about it like this. If I stub my toe, the pain is primordial. It originates in me. I'm having the firsthand experience. But when I watch you stub your toe, and I sort of wince in sympathy, I'm experiencing your pain.
Yeah.
The source material says I am led by a primordial one, not experienced by me, but still there.
So it feels real.
It feels real, but it's not happening to my immediate eye. I have this, unique kind of access to it, but I didn't generate it.
It's an original experience that doesn't originate in me. I'm perceiving something that belongs entirely to the other person, but it's being given to my consciousness in this very specific, non-original way.
Yes. And that distinction is the bedrock of her whole theory.
So now we have this really abstract definition.
And it forces us to deal with the biggest challenge. We suspended the whole world to find this pure I, but, we live in a world of bodies. We have to build the bridge back.
Right. If the pure I is non-spatial, non-physical, how do we ever connect it back to the body to form a complete human being?
What material is strong enough to bridge that gap between pure consciousness and, matter?
What is it?
Stein argues that the crucial link is sensation. Things like pressure, cold, heat, pain. We might think of pain as purely physical, but Stein says no, sensations are real constituents of consciousness. They belong to the pure I. You can't suspend them or doubt them. They're part of the core experience.
Wait, okay, hold on. If the I is non-spatial, how can the pain, which I feel in my arm or in my leg, how can that be part of the non-spatial I?
This is such a brilliant move. She distinguishes between the Körper, the body, as just a physical object, measurable mass, and the libe,
The living body.
the living, experiencing, sentient body. The non-spatial I is intimately linked to the libe. And sensations are these sort of hybrid things. They belong to the pure I, but they're always spatially localized in the living body. You can't just say, I feel a floating pressure. You say, I feel pressure here, and you point to a spot on your libe.
So the live, my living body, is the center of my orientation. It's my 0 point in the world. And that living sensing body, it forms this psychophysical unit with the soul.
Precisely. And you can see this unity everywhere in psychophysical causality,
Yeah.
a physical event, the stubbed toe causing a psychic experience, the pain, or in general feelings like vigor or fatigue, which seem to fill both body and soul at the same time.
The soul is based on and expressed through the living body.
And this unified entity, this psychophysical individual, belongs to the realm of nature. It's subject to causal laws.
Okay, this brings us to a really fascinating point about our own self-awareness. If my live is always my center of orientation, my fixed here, then I must intuitively feel like I'm the center of the universe. So how do I ever realize that my body is just a physical body among many others?
It's the power of reiterated empathy. When you empathize with someone, you get a new image of the spatial world that's centered on them. You mentally have to shift your 0 point to their perspective.
You're kind of mentally mapping the world from there here.
Exactly. And it's only by doing this over and over, by empathically realizing that the other person's center is just a spatial point among many, that you're forced to conclude the same thing about yourself. I must, as she says, no longer consider my own 0 point as a 0 point, but as a spatial point among many.
Wow. That's the aha moment. We literally need to step outside ourselves through empathy to fully see ourselves as an object, to become a complete individual, not the fixed center of the universe, but just one part of it.
The act of truly seeing another constitutes our ability to truly see ourselves.
Which is a huge claim.
It is. And that leads us to the next level, the higher realm. The transition from that psychophysical individual, which is governed by nature and causality, to the spiritual person.
And how is this spiritual dimension different from the soul we were just talking about?
So the soul, as we've established, is tied to the libe and is subject to psychophysical causality. One event mechanically causes the next. The spirit, on the other hand, is what faces nature. Its life is governed not by that kind of blind causality, but by motivation.
Okay, what's the difference between causality and motivation in this philosophical sense?
Causality is a mechanical sequence. A hits B, B moves C. It can be explained from the outside. Motivation, though, is the experience proceeding of one experience from another. It forms an intelligible meeting context. When a person acts, they aren't just being pushed by a chemical reaction. Their actions flow from a feeling, a belief, a value.
So the spiritual realm is where meaning lives. It's about a kind of rational lawfulness. It sounds like the basis for ethics, for values.
It is. It's the basis for what Stein calls a priori sciences, like axiology, the study of value and ethics. When we understand a spiritual person, we don't just explain that they did something. We comprehend why they did it. We grasp the meaning.
And we grasp this meaning through feelings, specifically feelings of value, not the sensory feelings of the body, but things like joy over a beautiful act or anger over an injustice.
Yes, and these value feelings are crucial because they reveal the depth of the I. Remember that pure I we found in the reduction? It has no depth, it's just a point. But the I we experience through emotion has levels of various depths, and these levels correspond directly to the values the person encounters.
We create a hierarchy. The pain over losing my car keys it's shallow. The pain over losing a loved one is incredibly profound. It hits a deeper level of my being.
Exactly. And this hierarchy lets us judge the rationality of a person. If someone is completely overcome and their whole personality is defined by, say, the loss of wealth, Stein would argue they are perceived as irrational.
Because they've inverted the natural value hierarchy.
Right. They've prioritized a material gain over something like integrity or a human relationship, and in doing so, they showed they lack the correlative personal levels that spiritual maturity requires.
So the emotional response is like a direct X-ray of a person's spiritual structure and their values. This must be vital for understanding things like culture and history.
It is the entire methodology for the cultural sciences, the Geisteswissenschaften. If you study history or the humanities, you are pursuing history not through causal explanation, that's the natural science method, but through a comprehension that relives history.
So if I'm studying, say, the Reformation, I'm not just listing the economic causes. I'm trying to empathically grasp the motivation, the spiritual life of figures like Luther or Calvin. I'm trying to understand the meaning context that drove what they did.
Yes. Empathy with a foreign person is the exemplary basis for acquiring knowledge of ideal personal types, the spiritual person, the political person, the homo religiosus. But, and this is a huge but, our ability to do this is profoundly limited by our own personal structure.
So our own experiential makeup kind of sets our empathic boundary.
It does. We can fulfill experiences that logically derive from our own inner structure, even if we haven't had them yet. Someone who has never faced danger can still, empathize with courage because the potential for courage or cowardice is already in them.
But if the experience just completely conflicts with our type, let's say you're trying to empathize with the homo religiosus who joyfully sacrifices all their worldly goods.
You can only achieve what she calls an empty presentation. You can know intellectually that they acted based on a value, but you can't feel or fulfill that value yourself because it's just not present in your own spiritual depth.
And that limitation brings us right back to why empathy is so important for self-knowledge. If our own experience limits our empathy, how do we ever grow beyond what we already are?
Right. How do we even become aware of our own structural blind spots if we can only really grasp what's already, in some sense, inside us?
So what's the answer?
We learn to make ourselves objects of knowledge, but that process is often occasioned by empathy with others. When we empathize with someone whose structure is similar to ours, a related nature, she says, we develop the potential that is sleeping in us. And when we empathize with a dramatically different type, we become aware of what we lack.
And this is such a powerful philosophical check against individualism, against arrogance. Stein seems to echo that historian, Ranke, who said he wished to erase himself, to see things as they were.
Exactly. If we use our own limited individual experiential structure as the absolute standard for everything, we fundamentally falsify historical truth. We just end up remodeling other people into our own image, and we totally miss their true spiritual motivation. Empathy, when you see it this way, is the tool that forces us to recognize the reality of the other. It ensures we see spiritual life as being governed by intelligible laws of meaning, not just our own blind, egocentric projection.
Wow. This deep dive has really shown the immense scope of Edith Stein's thought. We went from the radical suspension of the entire world, through that unique bridge of sensation binding the I to the lib, and all the way up to the constitution of the spiritual person, who is governed by motivation. She defines this whole spiritual realm as a system of rational lawfulness, accessible through these unique acts of comprehension.
It's just a profound way of understanding what it means to be a person who exists in a world of meaning and culture. And it leaves us with this ultimate philosophical opening, one that Stein herself said requires further investigation.
The question of purely spiritual persons.
Yes. Since the idea of purely spiritual persons, the effect of God's grace or the existence of protective spirits, since that idea contains no logical contradiction, is it possible for them to exchange experiences, to influence one another, without needing the entrance provided by the physical body?
Huh. So if the reality of the spirit is based on motivation and meaning, and if history itself is understandable because it is an occurrence ruled by meaning, then what does the very intelligibility of human history imply about the true reach and reality of the spirit?
About it operating outside the confines of the sensory body?
That is definitely something for you to ponder long after this deep dive is complete.